In today's video, I'm going to answer one of the most common questions I get asked as a financial advisor, and that's how much of my paycheck should I actually be saving for retirement? After helping hundreds of clients plan their retirement journey, I've noticed that, cookie cutter advice like save 15% of your income often misses the mark. And that's why in today's video, I'm breaking down exactly how much you need to save at every age to retire comfortably by 60. And we're going to base that on real world examples from my own clients. So let's get into the video. The first thing I want to do is reference a study on this. And I think this is where the 15% of your income comes. And that's a guideline that Fidelity has put online, and you can see here it's called How Much Do I Need to Retire? And what they've done is they kind of started with the assumption that, hey, you're 25 years old and you're going to start saving 15% of your income annually beginning at that age. And so I think that's where the 15% comes in. Now, what they do is then they give you this guideline, which I think in a lot of ways is relatively handy. And they say, all right, at this age, you're going to need a multiple of your income saved at that age in order to retire comfortably by the age of 67. So you can see that by the time you're 30, they're saying you need 1 times your average annual salary saved. By the time you're 45, you need 4x. By the time you're 60, 8x. And by the time you're 67, 10x. So, just using some simple, round numbers here. I mean, let's say that you're making $200,000 a year. And at age 45, if that is the case, you need $800,000 saved. Now, if you get all the way out to age 60, rather than only having 800,000, now you need double that. You need 1.6 million. You need 8 times 200,000. And then at your retirement age, you need 10x, so $2 million saved. Now, notice that they've taken an income-based approach to this, and I think there's some wisdom in doing that. And the reason they've done this, what they say is, look, okay, do you expect your expenses to go down when you retire? Well, if you do, we call that a below average lifestyle. So think about it. People, they get, kind of accustomed to just living according to their income. And, there's a very well-known term for that. It's called lifestyle creep. And so it's kind of like, well, the more money that you make, the more your lifestyle expenses sort of creep up, and then you kind of adjust to living that new lifestyle. And, I can tell you it's pretty difficult to cut back once you're accustomed to something. And I always kind of laugh because you'll see in some of these videos the comments people will make, and, I might throw out some term like several $1,000,000, and in their mind they're like, that if I had that kind of money, life would be so easy. And I don't disagree. What they're forgetting is people just get used to living that lifestyle. And so, you might have a few $1,000,000, but if you were used to living off of $300,000 or $400,000 a year, it's going to be very hard for you to go down and just start living off of 60 grand a year. You couldn't do it, right? Most people, that's such a drastic change. It would just be almost impossible for them. And so that's why I think there is some wisdom in using an income base. And they're going, well, if you want to maintain a pretty similar lifestyle, this is sort of the math that's going to roughly get you there. And so to that end, I actually think it's useful to kind of use these as a rule of thumb. Now, having said that, and this is important, let me tell you about the client example that we're going to review today. When he came to me, he was worried that he was saving too little of his paycheck. And like a lot of people, he was stuck in this sort of paralysis analysis where he's constantly worrying about, am I saving enough? And what savings rate should I have? And then he saw this exact Fidelity study and he's going, oh man, I don't have that many multiples of my income saved. Because in fact, he's quite a high earner. And, based on his age, which you see in a moment, which you will see in a minute is 46. He should have basically, I think close to $1 million or something. I can't remember the multiple, but he doesn't have that. And so he's freaking out. And so after our first consultation, we discovered the real challenge wasn't about the percentage he needed to save. It was about understanding how his savings aligned with his retirement vision. And so while we covered age-based savings targets just now, the reality is your ideal savings rate depends on factors beyond just age and income. And that's why I always encourage my clients to first clarify their retirement lifestyle goals and then build a savings strategy around that vision. And if you'd like help determining your personalized savings rate that aligns with your retirement goals, I want to offer you a free consultation where we'll review your exact situation, no obligation. So to get started with that, just click the link below. But now let me get back to this example. I had to close the blinds there. The sun was going right in my eyes at this time of day. But what I really want to impart to you guys today is we're going to approach this not from the income angle, but from the expense angle, because that's really what's going to determine the kind of lifestyle that we want. And then what we're going to do is reverse engineer sort of, based on that, how much do we need to be saving? Let me pull up my trusty Excel workbook here. And I have software to do all of this, but I've kind of taken from our software some of these estimates and I've plopped them into this Excel workbook just so I can show you guys the real key inputs that drive this type of decision. And if you're new to this channel, a couple weeks ago I made a video on the magic retirement number. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to figure out the magic retirement number, and then we're going to back into how much do I need to be saving, and I'll show you how we do that. So this client, he's 46. We assume he'll live to the age of 90 and he wants to retire at 60. He's going to have 30 years of retirement. And as I said earlier, the big driver is going to be what kind of lifestyle does he want to live? The interesting thing about him is he lives in California, and that's a super high cost state, and it has very, very high taxes, as most of you are going to know. Now, if he wanted to maintain that lifestyle, he is going to need a lot more money than he has. But the truth of the matter is he's actually from the Midwest and he plans on moving back to the Midwest when he retires. So that's a major difference. And this is why it's kind of a mistake to focus too much on income rather than expenses, because his biggest expense by far is taxes. He's single. And he's in a high tax state like California, and he makes about $228,000 a year as a base salary. And so, he's paying $50,000, $60,000, depending on what you calculate for Social Security in taxes every year, which is a lot. And that's mostly going to go away. So he doesn't need the kind of lifestyle that $228,000 of income would provide, especially if he moves to a low-cost place like the Midwest. Now, we spend a lot of time going over the budget to really kind of nail what is the lifestyle that you want. And we've factored in a lot of things. Here it says regular. I've also factored in taxes based on, here's how much you're going to have in taxable accounts. Here's how much you have in Roth, HSA. He's got a 401k and all of that. We've already estimated that. And then we have these extra expenses like travel. So he wants to travel, spend $12,000 a year for 12 years. And then he's going to have a couple new cars. And then we want to factor in long-term care. And this is in present dollars. Okay, so assuming it's now, we're going to adjust for inflation. So don't worry about that. But this is all thinking if this happened tomorrow, these are what the expenses would be. And then we'll adjust for inflation later. On average, over that 30-year span, this is what it would take. There's going to be some variance over the years, but this is sort of the average that it's going to be. Same thing for his income. The only kind of income he's going to have is Social Security, and we've done a couple of things. The baseline is assuming he's going to get Social Security at 67. If he retires at 60, you've got 7 years where he won't get it. So he would be getting $45,000 a year, but we had to average that over 30 years instead of just 23 or whatever it is. Also, if you're only 46 right now, the issue is that Social Security is underfunded. They have to do something. We don't know what they're going to do yet, but the reality is if it just continues along as it is, they're only going to be able to fulfill 80% of the obligation. So that's what we assumed, that his Social Security would only be 80% of the estimated value. And so if you are younger, like not within probably 5 years of retirement, I'm going to tell you right now, you should assume, just to be safe, that your Social Security gets cut one way or the other, and that way you kind of account for this because something has to give. So this is the first part of figuring out our magic retirement number. We're just trying to figure out simply what is the income that we need. And I'm not going to go through all the details of that because if you're interested in that, you can go back and watch the magic retirement video. So I'm going to kind of like fly through this section of it and not get into the details on that since we've already done it once. Now, he's going to need about almost $53,000 a year net after his expenses and income. And so we're going to derive, well, what size portfolio do I need in order to get that? So I've taken some assumptions about stock and bond returns and what kind of a portfolio. I mean, honestly, this is a little bit conservative, especially now, but it's fine. And so we come up with a 7.4% annual return number. Then this is where the inflation adjustment comes in. So historically, over a long period, inflation has averaged about 3.3% a year in the United States. We're going to use that as our average. You could use something different if you want, but nevertheless, you need to use something. And so what we're doing is we're calculating what's called the real return, and we adjust our portfolio return assuming inflation. And that's what we're going to use to calculate our magic number of savings that he needs to get to. So if I divide 53,000 by 3.9%, what you come up with is $1.35 million. Important to note, that's in today's dollars. In the future, 14 years from now, that would actually be higher. But that's fine because the other numbers, the savings that we're going to get are also going to be inflation adjusted and everything is going to tie out. So we know that's the magic retirement number. Now, what do we need to do? Well, we're going to have to figure out how much he needs to save to get there. And there are really a couple of big inputs. One is, how much does he have saved currently? And so that's this current investable assets. Oh, let me change this. It's actually different. I was playing around with this earlier. He's got about $509,000 saved right now. We are just going to use Excel's payment function. It's quite simple, and we're going to use that magic retirement number to back into how much he needs to get saved. So we got the 3.9% rate. That's the inflation adjusted return assumption. We've got 14 years as your number of periods. Current investable assets is $509,000. Remember, if you are actually doing this at home, you need to make that a negative number. That's the PV in the formula. I'm not going to explain why. I'm sure there's plenty of Excel gurus out there that are going to explain that for you. The future value is the magic retirement number. That's $1.35 million. And then end of period is you're going to choose 0 instead of 1. And that's all we need to calculate how much does he need to save on an annual basis. So we've got all of that in our formula, and it kicks back a number of roughly $26,000 a year. Now, if you recall, I told you he makes about $228,000 a year before bonuses and stuff, but you kind of never know about that. So $26,000 is not 15%. In fact, it's only 11.4%. And so even though he only has $509,000, which, in actuality, I think the table said he needed, was it 4 or 6 times that? I don't remember, but whatever it was, he's well under that number. But he, I think, is going to be okay, and 11.4%, he actually is going to be able to save that. In fact, he's saving more than that now. But this is good. This gives us an exact figure to shoot for. Now, what I want to show you guys is, what happens if we change some of these variables? Because it's going to make quite a difference. The first thing would be, well, what if he actually had a lesser lifestyle and let's say he moved to, I don't know, West Virginia, okay? And, well, if that was the case, maybe, I don't know, 60,000. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? So let's say he moves to West Virginia and it's even cheaper than the Midwest. Well, now instead of 26,000, he only needs 12,000, right? And I think, you guys can grasp that concept. I mean, it makes sense, but let me show you what happens if he wants an enhanced lifestyle. So let's say it's, 85,000 instead. So this is $15,000 higher per year. So now he's going to come across at, almost 100,000. Well, he's going to have to start saving about $47,000 a year, nearly 20%, which is quite a lot. I mean, that's a huge sacrifice for him. All right, so change that back to 70. The other thing to note is, okay, maybe he can't save that. Well, I've showed you guys this in a lot of videos. If he stretched out his retirement age and made it 67 versus 60, this makes a huge difference. Now it's only another $2,000 a year. Now, granted, I mean, that's an extra 7 years, and that's 21 years that his portfolio is going to be able to compound. But that makes a massive difference. And usually, when people can't retire, as much as you don't want to hear it, I mean, that's generally the answer is you're simply going to have to work longer. Now, the sad part is a lot of people, they might not be able to. One other variable to think about was, okay, what if he didn't have that much savings? So instead of 500,000, he's got 400,000. And there you go. Now it goes up to 36,000. So, I mean, you can see just $100,000 makes a huge difference over time. And now all of a sudden he's kind of close to that 15% number. Now, I thought it'd be interesting to show you guys a couple of different scenarios just for what a savings rate would be at different ages, kind of based off of some median income and savings assumptions here, just to kind of show you what an average person might look like. So, you can go online and find out what the median income is for a person based on a certain age. So what I've done, I went online and I looked at, okay, if a person's 30, 40, and 50, what's the median income? So you can see that in the far left column. It's 57,000, 64,000, and then 68,000. And then what I did, I said, okay, let's just use Fidelity's tables and we'll see if they had the savings that Fidelity said they need to have at those ages, how much annual savings do you need? It's kind of interesting to see what happens. So in the first case, at age 30, you would need 8.3% of your salary. You need to save about $47.50 a year, if you were making 57 grand. If you were 40, you'd only need to save 6.1%. And if you were 50 and you had 410,000 saved, but that was your income, you'd only need 1.8%. So it's interesting it actually goes down. So I think, you start at age 25 at 15%, and as you accumulate savings, as long as you hit those targets, the savings amount would actually go down. Now, then I asked, okay, what would happen if you had zero savings at all of these ages? What happens then? And you would go from, if you started at 30, saving 13.5%, then it would jump to 24%, and then 50% if you were at 50 and you hadn't started saving. So one big point of emphasis is the earlier you can start, I'm sure you've heard this, but it's true, the earlier you can start saving, the better off you can be. Compounding really is magic, but it needs sometimes decades to do that, or it means you have to save a lot of money. Now, if you have nothing saved at age 50, or even later, there's no time to start like now. You're still going to be better off having some savings versus none. The truth of the matter is, when you do eventually retire, you're just going to probably have to accept a lower than average lifestyle than you were accustomed to. Something else for you guys to think about: don't freak out if you're 40 or 50 and you're not hitting these benchmark savings goals yet. The truth is, most people, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you hardly have any ability to save. Imagine if you're in New York City and you're a young professional, and I know they make more there, but it is so expensive. And if you want to live any kind of a life at all, you're barely just scraping by, and you're definitely not going to be able to save much in your investment account. The truth is, a lot of people start socking away more money close to the age of 45 or 50 because, let's say you're a doctor. Now your medical school is paid off, your kids are more grown up, you've already satisfied a lot of other obligations, and now you're hitting your peak earning years. And this is where you actually start to have the chance to save kind of real money. And so the truth of the matter is, it's never too late, but yes, once you are 40 or 50, you're not going to do yourselves any favor if you're taking, $30,000 a year vacations. If you're only making, $250,000 a year, you're going to have to start saving a lot of money to catch up. but I've seen a lot of people do it. I'll give you guys a great example. Back in my last firm, we had a couple of clients. They were both executives of like a Fortune 500 company, and literally they had nothing. They were paying off credit card debt in their 40s. By the time they were 50, they finally started accumulating something, but then they started making real money, and they were able to retire, I'm trying to remember, around like 62 or 63. So they went from having virtually like nothing at age 50 to being able to retire around 63. Now, I guess it's always like a reoccurring thing with the Midwest, but it is so cheap here. They lived in Cincinnati, and so, Cincinnati is not a high-cost place. They didn't need the kind of lifestyle that you would need to have if you were in New York or, LA or San Francisco or Boston or something like that. But I bring that up just to make you feel better if you aren't there. It's not hopeless at all. Now, before we wrap up, I just want to emphasize that retirement planning is not about copying someone else's saving strategy. It's really about understanding what works for you and your unique situation. And so these age-based savings targets we discussed, they're honestly solid guidelines, and I like them, especially for their simplicity. But your personal retirement number is going to look different based on your lifestyle and goals. And to help you get crystal clear on your specific savings target, I'm offering a free retirement savings assessment. During our call, we'll analyze your current savings rate, we'll identify any gaps, and create a customized savings strategy that aligns with your retirement timeline. And you'll walk away knowing exactly how much you need to save to make retirement at 60 a reality. So if you're interested in that, click the link below to get started. And if you like this video, I make other videos on retirement-related topics every week, so remember to hit subscribe and you'll get the video in your feed next week. Thanks for watching.